Why is it important to establish a training routine? Well, as the old saying goes, if you don't use it, you lose it. And unfortunately, all of the skills that you acquire in connection to deduction can be a little bit on the obscure side. It's seldom that a day goes by where you need to use your mind palace memory techniques, observation, deduction, every single skill that is connected to deduction. As such, a lack of using all of these skills like mentalism, body language reading, they can grow rusty and dull. Fortunately, however, with a solid training routine, with a schedule, you can prevent them from becoming rusty simply by practicing use of them, exercising those skills so they don't become weak. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how you can establish a training routine. We're going to be looking at my training routine, and we're going to be learning to apply that to a daily routine that you can, over time, establish so as to prevent your skills from becoming dull. To begin, I want to get you in the mindset of establishing a training routine. This is a task that's difficult to qualify, to be honest, because no two people need to train the exact same way. We're all individuals, and the things that we need to learn are individual. For example, take the example of a doctor and a mentalist. On one hand, you have someone who needs to study body language, manipulation, observation, those sorts of skills, entertaining, performing. These are skills that a doctor doesn't necessarily need to understand. He needs to focus his attentions on medication, medicine, physical illnesses, skin conditions, things that a mentalist, though would be useful to a mentalist, doesn't necessarily need to focus on as drastically as a doctor does. Because of this, the way they train, even if they both want to use deduction in their fields, will be different. They'll be training in different ways. It's a crude example, but it helps illustrate the fact that if I was to give you a bullet-by-bullet list, as I'm actually going to do in this video, that bullet-by-bullet list isn't necessarily going to touch all the fields that you need to work on. So what I want to highlight with this example is that when I give you this list that you're going to be watching soon, don't be too concerned with following it to the letter. I'm giving you an outline of a list. It's up to you to make the list your own, to make the training regimen your own, so that you can go through and you can add elements that you need to look into more. You can take out certain elements that I think are important that may not be so important to you. The skills we're talking about in this video that I suggest training in are observation, deduction, physical exercise, learning a new language, reading for both academic purposes and for recreational, because recreational reading can actually help improve your imagination, whereas if you're just reading for academic purposes, it can be just about putting information in your mind. You're not getting anything. You're not expanding your mind anyway. Learning a new language, why? Because that can help you form new connections, that can help you make your brain more elastic, it can help you learn things easier in the future. Then just things that you think are necessary for you, and then just miscellaneous things like knowledge base increase. Those will be the things that we'll be touching on that I think, that's kind of like a general rough outline of my training routine. And I'll be showing you how to get into each of those skills, how to train each of those skills now. Observation is one of the fundamental skills in the art of deduction, and not necessarily one of the easiest ones to train in. You can't just tell yourself to be more observant. But there are exercises online that are designed to test your observational skills. Another way to practice this is to create a mental checklist for every time you meet a person. Observe the eye color until it becomes second nature to observe that. Then add something else to the list. If you're lucky enough to have a Watson, you can play games and have them challenge you with which gears your mind to be on guard more often. If you're alone, you can try other exercises, like looking at a room and then closing your eyes and trying to list as many details about the room as you can. Keep in mind that when practicing this, you don't need to be worried about actually making deductions. You're only working on observation at this stage. The next step, however, is deduction. After you've observed shrewdly, the deductions can be made. This can be achieved a little easier with some discipline. I make it a point to simply make deductions once a day. It's not very hard to set that goal for yourself, either of people, inanimate objects, or of rooms. If I fail to make at least one solid deduction per day, go someplace like Reddit, make deductions there. You might begin even by standing in front of a mirror and seeing what you can deduce about yourself from your day. Or if you notice something odd about yourself, try to deduce why it came to be the way that it is. Next, you might do some deduction-based experiments. If you press down on a stick of paper with a pen, how many sheets of paper will the impression be observable on? Do books really just magically open up to the most used page? Ask yourself these questions and endeavor to answer them. Next up is Mind Palace memory training. Having a Mind Palace does you no good if you don't use it. If you've watched my videos on this subject, you've seen that I heavily suggest you take some time every few days to sit down and go to your Mind Palace to ensure all of the pegs are in order and all of the items are associated properly. I make it a point to go to each of my Mind Palaces and count each peg. I also take some time to do the same with my other memory methods, like the body method or the number method. Most important, though, it's best that you actually take some time and use the Mind Palace every day. I use it every day at work. Rely on it and it will ingrain itself. You don't have to do any extra work. Take a few minutes a day to sit down and travel through your Mind Palaces. Next one up is mindfulness meditation. Now, I try not to encourage people to skip any of their exercises. However, if there ever was one to skip, it would be mindfulness meditation. My reason for this is that going through your Mind Palace is technically already a form of meditation. However, it really isn't hard to take a few extra minutes at a time and sit to clear your mind. And then physical exercise. Now, this doesn't have to be anything extreme. You don't need to become a bodybuilder. But a healthy body breeds a healthy mind. And the many other benefits really speak for themselves. It can be as simple as a walk or a jog. You could build a workout to go in with exercise routines, or it could be martial arts training. But doing something to get your body moving can go a long way in keeping your mind just as sharp. Now, reading for knowledge base. Knowledge base is another important facet to a keen reasoner, and unfortunately, quality reading material dedicated to deduction is very limited. So, once you get through the required reading for deduction, picking up books on specific subjects is the next best thing. Body language, psychology, science, physics, biology, botany, chemistry, culture, other languages. It helps you pick subjects that interest you, like my study of art. And if you read a book on body language, change it up and read something else next time. And then reading for recreational purposes. This can help the imagination field, which is another important aspect to deduction. I don't suggest reading only academic material. Reading other books can be helpful. And it doesn't have to necessarily be fiction. It could be biographies, period pieces, any number of fictions, true stories, documentaries, or records. I usually listen to these things in audio form, but it can still spark imagination. Studying another language. I mentioned this in knowledge base, but I'll mention it again. Learning another language can help form new connections in the brain, improve its elasticity, and increase the brain's ability to learn new things in the future. So taking time to study another language is also a good thing to add to your training routine. Any skills useful to your own needs. As I mentioned in the outset, people use different skills. For example, I'm conducting a very unique study in art and its connection to deduction. So I study art in a way that not everyone else would need to add to their own training routine. If you are studying medicine for school, for whatever it may be, make sure to add these things to your routine. And that can be used to practice and train those. Miscellaneous. So any other possible exercises I may have missed. Martial arts, taking time out to study the videos that you're behind on, that sort of thing. Obviously, this is a generic list of things to add to your training routine. Use it as a template for your own, and don't be afraid to make alterations to the list. Add things to it, fill in the blanks, remove things on the list that may not be necessary for you. A daily routine for me begins at 8 a.m., assuming I don't have work in the morning, of course. I eat breakfast, then conduct a 15-minute workout. After my workout, which consists mostly of reps, lifts, and the like, I go about with my daily activities for a while. During the day, I conduct my studies. I like to have different studies in different formats. For example, if I'm reading a hardcover book about art, I'll study another subject, like chess, in digital. So my studies usually look something like this. I study one academic work in physical, which is currently art. Then I study one academic work in digital, which is currently chess. And then I study an alternative language, which is currently French. And any recreational reading I do is usually in audiobook format, done while driving, working out, or any other time that I need some background noise. My reading time averages out at an hour, though sometimes I can read for hours. After reading is usually a good time for meditation, and I generally combine mindfulness meditation for a few minutes. 5 minutes is usually adequate, but most people suggest 10, and then I take that same time to go through my mind palaces and memory techniques. Throughout the day, I make it a point to use my mind palaces in a practical way, and to perform at least one set of deductions throughout the day. This is easily done at work for me, or when I go shopping, or any other task. However, I fail to get a good set of deductions in throughout the day. I usually take some time to make deductions online. During the evening, I dedicate some time to studying martial arts, and then go for a 2-mile jog. Before I shower at the end of the day, I close off my day with another 15-minute workout. And that's an average daily routine for me, allowing time for menial tasks like eating or other responsibilities that need to be dealt with. I usually have to move things around a little bit depending on what my schedule is for the day. For example, if I go for a drive, I usually take that time while somebody else is driving to go to my mind palaces. If I have to do the closing shift at work, I like to get there early so I can sit there in my car and make deductions on passersby or meditate and go to my mind palace. It's extremely easy to fit most of these exercises into the rest of your day.